Hello and welcome to this video. I might have found a replacement, a cheaper alternative to what I thought was the cheapest non-dry modeling clay that I could find. And so we're going to look at this, see if it's a workable alternative. I'm going to see how it compares to the clay that I have been using. We're going to talk about some of its characteristics. We're going to test it out. So just initial thoughts, this comes in 1 pound packages. This was at Hobby Lobby. The brand is Nara, N-A-R-A. It's non-dry clay. It doesn't dry out. This clay is for practice, reusing over and over again. And if you want to make a sculpture permanent, then you have to mold and cast it. If you do want to make a mold, then you can mold and cast several editions of your sculpture. It's an oil-based clay like plasticine, plastilina, plastiline, all kind of different names for the same thing, which is an oil, and sometimes they add wax as well. I like it for that. I recommend students use some type of this clay so that they can use it over and over again. This is not a clay that you can bake in the oven. It'll just melt, and we'll actually get into that a little bit later because I want to melt this clay down and see what the colors look like once it's melted down. Now, just initially, I like the packaging because it looks like it'll be a lot easier to remove the clay from the packaging. The other one has it's like a harder plastic and then cardboard on the back. You have to tear it off and then you have to peel some plastic around. But this one looks like you just have to take the plastic off. And so I like that it's more accessible, so I can go through and open more of these quicker if I'm going to, let's say, mix together a big batch of clay. Now, I prefer to work with a clay that's a solid color, that's one solid uniform color. I just think that that looks better when you're doing a larger sculpture. It looks more professional and you're not distracted by different colors here and there. So I'm going to melt this down. I'm going to see what it looks like if I just melt the colorful version. And then this one's called the pastel version. And I'm curious and kind of excited for the melting down the pastel version. And then maybe we'll try mixing the two and see what that color looks like. This one, because it was on sale at Hobby Lobby, it was $1 a pound instead of $2 a pound. And the other clay that I use is usually around $3 a pound because it comes in 7-ounce containers and each one is $1.25 at the Dollar Tree. So it ends up being about $3 a pound. So this one was 1/3 of the cost. And because I got 50 pounds, they also shipped for free. So for $50 plus tax, I was able to get 50 pounds of clay. So just an incredible deal on non-dry modeling clay. And if this is as good as the other clay, then I'll be switching to this clay as my cheap choice for non-dry modeling clay. So let's go ahead and take some of these out of the packages. I'll put them in a container and then we'll melt it down, see how it melts, see how it mixes, and then we'll see how it sculpts, how it feels. Let's do it. Okay, let's start off with this. After opening a few of these, I can definitely tell that they're easier to open. Probably takes like 1/5 of the time to open them and put them in. So that is already a point in the favor of this type of clay. Let's go ahead and melt it down and see what it looks like. So I went ahead and melted down this colorful version of this clay, and it's looking very promising. I really like the neutral gray. I'm going to pour it into an old yogurt container, then let it cool down and go ahead and mix the pastel, and we'll see what that one looks like. All right, I've just melted down and mixed this pastel version of this clay, and it's very promising. I really like the green that I'm seeing. It's kind of almost a moss green, but a very light color. And with clays, when you're mixing colors, it's always easier to darken the color than to make it lighter. So really liking how this is looking. While we let that cool down, I'm gonna try mixing the pastel with the colored version. So the pastel is this nice green, the colored version was a nice gray. Let's see if we mix them together and we get something somewhere in between and see how that looks, just for fun. So we're gonna mix half and half and see how that looks. And here's the result of those. So if you just melt down all of the clay into one consistent color, it comes out as this really nice charcoal gray. So it's still a dark gray, definitely darker, just to give a comparison. So this is Monster Clay. This is a popular clay, and you can see that it's quite a bit darker than that Monster Clay. The Monster Clay is more of a bluish gray. This one looks to be more of a neutral or maybe more of an earthy gray, but very gray. It doesn't look like it's tilting towards brown or red or green. It's just a very neutral color. I really like the neutral grays, and so I think just a really handsome looking clay. That's very exciting. And then with the pastels, it came out as this, what I think is a really nice neutral, almost like a chalk green or like a moss green, but very light in color. When I was melting it, the only issue that I had is it seemed like the pastel clay separated just a little bit more when I was melting it, that some of the sediment settled at the bottom, and then there was some oil on top that seemed to separate out. So I'd say if you are going to melt this down into one consistent clay, just be sure to stir it extra well before you pour it, but that's a good idea for any type of oil-based clay that you're working with. A very nice light green, and then mixed together, well, it's just what you'd expect. It's right in the middle. It doesn't seem that green. So this moss green mixed with this dark gray comes out again as a very neutral gray, a little bit lighter, just as you'd expect in between those two colors. That is a very exciting result for just taking the clay, putting it into a pot and melting it. If it sculpts similarly to the other type of clay, then I would say that this is the winner for the best budget non-dry modeling clay that you can find right now. Making interesting art with cheap materials, and so this is an exciting find. So let's get into the most important part, which is the actual sculpting. So I'm working this while it's still hot, it's still pretty warm. Usually I'd let it settle for about a day just to let things kind of set up, but I'm just gonna work it so that we can see what the results are. It's nice to have it warm and soft while I'm blocking in the figure, and then it'll cool down as I start working on the details, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, I just finished up a little gesture study, fairly quick sculpture just to test out the clay, try some tools with it, and now I can give you my thoughts on how it sculpts, let you guys know what I think about this as a budget type of clay. Now, before I get to the final results, I just want to invite you guys to check out my sculpting courses. There's a figure sculpting course where I walk you step by step through the stages of building up a figurative sculpture, making the wire armature, building out the primary forms, the secondary forms, the anatomy, and then finally the surface detail. That course is basically everything I wish I knew when I started sculpting people, and it's on sale right now. The summer sale is going on. That ends July 4th or July 5th, I'm not sure, but it ends soon. And so I definitely recommend getting that course with discount code summer sale for 20% off. If it's after the sale, it's still a great deal, still a good course, and I hope you'll consider getting it. There's also a portrait sculpting course if you're interested in just the portrait, and there's also a hand sculpting course for the hands, which we all struggle with. Hands are difficult. So this is the clay that I'm comparing it to. So this is from Dollar Tree. Again, it's $1.25 plus tax. Comes in 12 different colors, and it's 7 ounces of clay. Now, if you mix all of this together, you get this dark gray. Now, you can see how dark this is. Grab that other clay and compare it. So, similar type of neutral gray, but it's just a shade darker than this clay, than the Nara, but I'm going to call it Hobby Lobby modeling clay. So the Hobby Lobby modeling clay, I think, is just a little bit nicer of a gray. Because I use a dark background, I prefer just a little bit lighter of a gray. And that's with this color. And then with the pastel, it's even lighter, a lighter kind of neutral color. Really nice, really nice. I like that pastel. So we're talking about budget clay. That means mixing all of the colors together. If you take out some of the colors, that's what I did with this. To get the brown, I removed the 4 darkest colors. But then you're making it more expensive because you're essentially getting rid of some of the clay, and it becomes even more expensive. So instead of $3 a pound, it's $4 a pound or something like that. So this one, regular price is $2 a pound, but if you can get it on sale, which is what I did, it was $1 a pound. So a great sale, but we're gonna talk about it at its regular price. For price, you gotta give it to Hobby Lobby clay. It's a great deal. $2 a pound is great for non-dry modeling clay. As far as color, for just mixing all of the colors together, I also have to give it to the Hobby Lobby clay. I really like these neutral colors that you get when you mix all of the clay together without having to worry about mixing your own colors or losing some of the clay by removing a few colors to make it look more nice. I just really like these colors. Now, you may prefer something that's a little bit more colorful. You might prefer a brown or maybe an even more intense green. I really like muted colors for sculpting. I find it distracts less from the sculpture, and the sculpture and the surface is what we should be focused on. So that's why I like the mutedness of these. Now let's talk about the feel of the clay now that I've had the chance to work with both. For feel, I do have to give it to the Dollar Tree clay. Now this is a soft clay, but it's got like a, I guess like a silkiness to it, I would describe it. Maybe feels a tad more oily, but it just has a little bit more of a, I don't know, like a smooth, silky feel to the clay. So I just like the feel just a tad more. It's hard to tell the difference just by the feel of the clay. What little difference there is, I would give a slight edge to the Dollar Tree clay. Now, as far as firmness, I'd say they're about equally soft. Both of these are a soft clay, great for larger sculptures and working quickly. At the beginning, when this clay was warm, I was able to really move clay pretty fast, and that's what it's great for. Even when the clay is at room temperature, you can move a lot of clay quickly, which is what you want for larger sculptures. And then also you want cheaper clay for larger sculptures because you're using more clay. So both clays are great for that. Now, as far as tackiness and how much it sticks to the tools, I feel like this clay was just a tad less tacky. Neither of these clays had any issue at all Like when I was working with the metal tools that I typically use, there was no issue of it sticking to the tools. Some types of wax, microcrystalline wax that I like for sculpting, that sticks to tools so much that I don't even like using it with tools. I just do all of that by hand. But both of these clays tool great. Both of the clays will melt and come to a consistent color, which I like. And both of these clays can be used and reused. They won't dry out over time, so if you're doing a large sculpture and you're going to mold and cast it and you want to have time to develop the features and everything, either one of these clays will work great. With this clay, I've noticed that when I let it sit for a while, it almost becomes more shiny, but it doesn't change the consistency of the clay at all. The more expensive clay that I get, Chavant NSP, that kind of gets like a waxy coating as it sits around for a long time, like a couple months, 6 months or something. So the outside becomes a little bit waxy, but it's still workable. You can still sculpt it and add clay onto it, no problem. But that is something that I've just found about my typical clay compared with this clay. This one I haven't had a chance to let it sit around, and so I don't know, but it should be workable and reusable. That's what these non-dry modeling clays are for, so I'm just going to assume that this is very similar to that one. It does have a little bit different of a smell, almost a little bit more of a metallic smell to it, but not an overwhelming smell. Both of them are fine, nice smelling clays. It's not like the sulfur clays that they used to make, which would smell like rotten eggs. Kind of nasty. They used to put sulfur to actually give the silky feeling of clay that I was talking about, that this clay has just a little bit more of. Both of them are, I think, a great budget option. But if I was going to purchase a lot of clay, let's say I needed to do a life-size sculpture for molding and casting, and I didn't have either of these clays and I was debating which one to purchase, I would probably go with the Nara modeling clay from Hobby Lobby, especially if you can find it at a discount on sale for $1 a pound. And if you're able to get that discount of purchasing $50 or more, then they pay for shipping as well. And so just a great deal. This is another great option for clay. I still have a bunch of this clay that I need to use. I need to melt down and use for different projects. So I'm not in a hurry to build up a storehouse of more clay right now, but I will definitely keep this in mind for when I'm ready to make another large sculpture. All right, I hope you guys will try out this clay and let me know your thoughts. If you guys have any other clays that you'd like me to test out, or sculpting mediums in general, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear any other budget clays that you guys have, or maybe more expensive ones that you'd like me to test out and give a review of. This is really fun. I like doing this kind of stuff. I like experimenting with clays. With these softer clays, you can also add things like wax to them, like beeswax or paraffin wax, if you want to firm them up a little bit. But for the most part, I see these as a really good budget option for just starting to learn how to sculpt with clay. So this was about 4 pounds of clay. To sculpt this, about the same amount of clay, but this one was around $12 of clay and this one around $8 of clay when it's not on sale. But because it was on sale, it was around $4 of clay. So just a really good deal for doing sculptures. These are about 18 inches or 1/4 life size. This was a fun video. As always, I hope you can stay creative and stay productive. I'll see you in the next video.